Hello everybody, it's me again, James the Counsellor. I'm trying a different, I'm trying my PC, webcam this time, rather than the tablet camera. See how it goes. You can see the the tatty horrible background that is my house, or someone else's house I live in. Yeah, not high rent, old terrace. Anyway, yeah, it's I don't know, it's been weeks since I posted a video on the channel, in large part because I haven't been out or been able to get out for weeks. I haven't been able to do my usual anti-Tory, anti-austerity, anti-sanctions protests and stuff with my mate, because I've not been well and he's not been well, and the weather's been up and down here as it is on the coast quite a lot. It's the 21st of May today, so it's the European elections EU Parliament elections are imminent. I didn't think I'd be saying that last time I made a video. So yeah, I was going to talk about usual universal credit and everything else. I was in today sort of signing on, although you don't sort of sign on anymore. You sort of just go for your, what do they call it, work search review, and mine was today. It has been monthly. It's now that I've reached 6 months, it's now become fortnightly. But because, which is what I'm going to get on to, because I've been ill, and I haven't wanted to tell them, because this is one of the problems with the current system. If you're claiming job seekers before, if you're claiming UC now, if you suddenly become ill, you don't really want to tell them, because you're thinking they're going to make me switch on to from JSA to ESA as it was then. Now I wasn't quite sure what the process would be, even though ESA has been included in UC with JSA and everything. I thought, was that mean a reapplication for ESA then? So then you got a whole another month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, potentially without money while you're waiting for that to be assessed and hoping it, is successful. So I haven't really, even though I've been struggling to just do normal stuff. Can't really get out of the house, can't walk about, or because a chest infection a few months ago kicked off an irregular heartbeat that I suffer from sometimes. Not for 2 years now, but it kicked it off. Went to a doctor a month ago who said it was just the end of a chest infection, and it wasn't going to give you anything, and to bugger off and get better. And then after another month, I went last week again to see a different doctor, and he said, no, you've had your heart's been out of whack for quite some time, probably kicked off by the chest infection 2 months ago. So I've had it for a while, and what it means is, and this is the problem today, is that the job centre here is literally, I'm one side of a bridge, it's the other side of a bridge, so I just have to go over the bridge, but of course I can't walk on the flat. I can't breathe properly on the flat, so making it over the bridge in time without being late was difficult. Even though I set off early, it still took me longer than I thought it would. It was more difficult than I thought it would be. So I was nearly late. I wasn't quite late, so I had a few minutes to spare. Although the woman at the reception, it's not really a reception, the one sort of logs you in and everything, said finally found my name after sort of minutes of searching, which I found a bit odd, and then said, okay, I'll tell you, you're here, Mr. Paul, you're late. And I thought, I'm not bloody late. It looked at even the clock on their wall said I was on time, which is just an old, battery operated, battery driven, old sort of crappy £5 clock sort of thing. And the time on my tablet, which I rely on because it's digitally sort of connected, said I was early. So nothing more was said, thankfully. But I thought, am I going to have a fight on my hands here now about this, about I'm a minute late or something, which wasn't true, basically. Anyway, luckily not, and luckily, to be fair, my work coach read on my, you have to do it all online, read on my universal credit on work search notes that I've been ill with this, and actually said when she sees me in 2 weeks and she's got to, would it help me if she gave me a phone call, a phone interview instead, as long as I put all the stuff up on the universal credit the system for myself. And I was quite surprised, to be honest. I was pleasantly surprised. So thank God I'm not going to have to struggle over the bridge next time I'm worried about being late. But yeah, it's been a bit weird while all that's been going on. I've been doing my usual stuff, trying to help people, residents in my ward who are suffering really serious, long lists of problems that are all sort of like, basically been kicked off by them having their PIP withdrawn last year. And of course, over time, that means that other things are affected. So it's it's like a rolling stone rolling down a hill. And I've been trying to help, but of course I've got no means myself. I can only try and help. I can only send emails out to the people I think can help. I've got in contact with a company because this person I'm trying to help me choose, very well known brand that I contacted with a sort of begging email on my residents' behalf. Were very nice and immediately responded and have given us some vouchers for my residents. That's fantastic. But then there's a long list of things that basically social services should be dealing with. But as you and I know, after nearly 10 years of Tory bleeding austerity, social services here, I'm sure probably where yours are, is virtually non-existent. It's collapsed, So this one person, I've got a huge list that I have to try and get through, and I'm sort of halfway there, trying to deal with my own health issues. My health issues are another sort of byproduct of years on and off the dole, unfortunately, under one Thatcherite Tory government after another, including Blair's. We're left to rot for years. You're not really given any real opportunity to sort of get off. No real help. So that's the sort of root of my problems. Is years on the dole, years in poverty, a lifetime in poverty. I'll be 45 in August. A lifetime in relative economic poverty. Surprise, surprise, destroys your health because you have to eat the cheapest food, which isn't the best food. I'm educated about what I should or shouldn't eat, but at the end of the day, it's most of the time it's down to what you can afford or can't afford to eat. As I'm sure many of you know. I've been very lucky and not had to resort to a food bank yet for myself, but it's been bloody close a few times. I'm doing food bank refills for people now in my ward that need it, and I've got some food banks which are being really helpful, so that's great. I was hoping this week that I'd be well enough to be back outside the job centre with my mates back in town protesting universal credit, protesting all the cuts, protesting the lack of social services, lack of mental health services in the community, and all of that, protesting the lack of social housing, social house building. Where I am, in my shire, there's just social house building, non-existent, isn't happening. It's a Tory-led council, that's why. Just isn't happening. They're building affordable housing, which of course is no use to me or someone like me, because affordable housing is theoretically affordable if someone's got money. I haven't got any money. So I need social housing. We need social housing. It's just not happening here. So I don't know what it's like where you are. I don't know if there's any being built at all, or if it's that's a burning issue where you are or not. I know nationally over the years, obviously, as most of us know, nowhere near enough social housing has been built. I was in town today, had to sit down on my way back from town. Sat on a bench in the high street next to a guy. It's a bench where typically um, the gentlemen and ladies that have got sort of, you know, drink problems sort of hang around and that, and are homeless and stuff, you know. Quite a few of whom I know and say hello to and talk to and things. And I sat down, and this guy next to me, who's obviously one of these guys, started talking to me, saying hello, you know, got a bit of change, yeah, you can have, I've got like a 50p or something, you know, you can have it. So I gave that to him and that, and he was sort of talking away. It was a lovely fella, you know, talking about who's homeless, doesn't get any help from the local authority. The night shelter here is no sort of use to him because they don't let him sort of use it or whatever. He was drinking, you know, had a few cans around him. He wasn't sort of antagonistic or in my face or anything like that. He was just, you know, talking really. Anyway, I got up to leave and was saying, you know, shook his hand and said, "Take care of yourself, won't you?" and all that, and thinking about what I could do or couldn't do to help him. There's nothing I can do to help him. I've tried basically with friends to get this night shelter scrutinised at by the local authority, but it just doesn't happen. Like I say, I've got no means of, I've got no way of helping. I can't offer him a place to stay, or I've got no money to help him with. So anyway, you know, you feel like a bit of a waste of space in those sort of situations, or I do, because you know I've listened to the guy and we've had a chat and that. That's the most I can do. So maybe that's enough for now. I don't know. Just to you know keep him sane for you know that part of the day or whatever. Anyway, just as I'm going, a guy turns up and says hello to him, and he goes to me. The guy with the can says to me, "Oh, this is my social worker." And I went, "Oh, hello." The social worker sort of says, looks at me and goes, "Oh, all right." Obviously thinking I'm one of his mates. I don't know what he thought. And then he goes, he sort of ignores me completely and says to this guy, "I told you you're not supposed to drink, or I told you not to drink, didn't I?" And all that stuff. And I walked away. I said, "Oh, I better go." You know, walked away. And I just thought, is this the level of sort of intervention this guy's getting, and these people are getting? Is you know, I'm sure well-meaning, overstretched social workers or whatever, care workers, whatever, from the council, uh, have the best intentions and everything, but just saying to somebody who's clearly got a problem with alcohol, which is, I mean, he basically told me that's why he's out on the streets. You know, just saying to them, "You shouldn't. I told you you shouldn't drink." I just found a bit of an odd, a bit of a weird thing to say, because obviously the guy's got an addiction, and if it was as simple as just saying to him, "Don't drink," and he didn't, he wouldn't have a problem. He wouldn't need a social worker. He wouldn't be out on the streets. He wouldn't. I just found that all a bit strange, really. Because I did want to talk to him. I wanted to ask him about, you know, what he thought about local night shelter and all that sort of stuff, and what I've heard a lot about it and everything, and things they don't do to help people, and you never quite know what's the truth or not, you know. But I've not heard good things. Um, but yeah, I just it made me laugh. Thought is, you know, someone on universal credit, me, with sod all money, who's just come up to sort of walk around really and meet me mate. I usually do this sort of anti-austerity protest with, just for a cup of tea and say hello to him. He bought the tea, which was nice of him. You know, spending my time and what little I've got sort of worrying about this guy who's worse off than me, really. And I thought, it's not really, you know, I'm happy to help as much as I can, but what can I do? So, yeah, I always try and befriend anyone that I see in my high street or at my local supermarket across the road who's sleeping rough and I haven't seen before. I say hello and try to befriend them and find out what's going on and see if just think about it. If there's anything I can do to help, really, but usually there isn't. You know, apart from badger the powers that be, but that doesn't work either. You know, that's something I've learned. It's fantastic, feeling passionately about all this sort of stuff, and and being anti-Tory and anti-austerity, and knowing this is the root problem, and like we're going to these EU elections and that, and this whole sort of time at the moment with all that epitomises the complete breakdown of our political system and political class in Westminster, and councillors upwards, councillors, county councillors, MPs and that. Not all, but many. The problem is you're talking about careerists, and career politicians don't have your best interest at heart or mine at heart. They've got their careers to think about, and this is the problem. I think this is the sort of the culmination of that. That it's more than Remain or Leave now. We can all see that what you or I think doesn't really matter. What you or I vote doesn't really matter. And yes, it's overtaken all of the important stuff that's going on, which is the austerity agenda from the Tories and the food banks and the rising child poverty, rising homelessness, all the stuff we know about. It never gets mentioned anymore. Hasn't done for months and months and months on on BBC sort of political shows or Sky or whatever, ITV, when they're putting on Piers Morgan and all that. It's never mentioned, anything but is mentioned. But Brexit's always mentioned, of course. And I think it's time, or obvious that it's time, that we need an entirely new political class, basically. What we've got at the minute, you see, are the remnants and the sort of the progression of what happened during the early mid-1990s, and particularly in Labour, when John Smith died and Tony Blair took over. There's an article I was reading actually about, which showed a graph during my my application for my PhD, which I'm going back to do now, which is about the complete sort of breakdown in the class structures and class representation in politics for the working class and the underclass, which I suppose I'm part of, because you're just not represented in all the different levels of local government, national government, as we know, just not represented. Your lives aren't. My life isn't the norm, isn't understood by probably the majority of MPs, but particularly in the Labour Party, is a problem. And as I say, I was reading an article. There's very few research articles in this, very few in the past 40 years, since the end of the 70s. But this was a recent one from I think it's from last year actually, where the researcher basically mapped the rise of the careerists from what point in the past decades, and the demise of working class MPs, really, non-careerist MPs. And there's a graph in there which is just absolutely stark, and it is included it because the British Labour Party in particular, from all the sort of socialist and Labour parties in Europe, is perhaps the most stark example of how this changed almost like that. 94, 93, 94, 95, where you've got just a plummeting, absolute cliff face of working class MPs being hemorrhaged from the Labour Party and replaced by an almost vertical line of careerists. And that's when it started, and that's what sort of carried on. And the problem now within the Labour Party is, speaking as Labour councillor, as I see it, is fine, you've got Jeremy Corbyn, fine, you've got socialist or more socially based rather than business-based, socially based policies in the manifesto and that. But the problem is, as I see it at the minute, is Corbyn is being held hostage ideologically and by his sort of more centrist right-wing shadow cabinet members like Keir Starmer, Emily Thornberry, who are still connected with the Blair right, and they're still careerist politicians. And he's he's weathering all of this sort of stuff, the attacks within the party, Tom Watson and that, very well on that. But he's not breaking free of it. He's not. We needed a purge. We've not had a purge, so now we're sort of stuck there. So if there is an upcoming general election after these EU elections, which is looking more and more like there's going to be, with the problems in the Tory party, and our opportunity to get rid of them at last and change what's been happening to all of us on the ground, this austerity crap, universal credit and everything, and disability assessments and all of that. This is our chance, and the problem is, I fear that Labour will get in, which would be great, but Corbyn and perhaps McDonnell and the manifesto promises and the socially progressive socialist ideas that are in there that we all need desperately after 4.5 decades of rampant neoliberalism, rampant corporatism, which has got us to this point, will just be diluted by the Blair centrist right wingers. It'll be diluted. So I don't know what's actually really going to get pushed through. This is my worry now. I like Jeremy Corbyn. He's a nice fella. He's done the right thing. He's taken us in the right direction, trying to take us back to what we're supposed to be. But he needs to be more vocal against the enemy within, to borrow a pun, ironically. And he needs to be doing more to get rid of the enemy within, or curtail their pretty treacherous efforts, to be honest. But anyway, that's enough of me. Let's see how the elections go, the EU elections. Like you, I fear that the Brexit party are going to capitalise. Farage, you may not like him or agree with him, or you may do, but the guy's no fool. He knows how to electioneer. He knows how to grab where he needs to grab and latch onto what he needs to latch onto and see what he needs to say. So I'm not going to vote personally. I can't vote against my party. I'm not prepared to vote for the slating, the Welsh Labour slate, unfortunately, in Wales, because unfortunately they've picked centre right politicians, candidates who, at least one of, perhaps two of, are vehemently anti-Corbyn, vehemently anti-membership and us and working class. So I can't lend them my support. So I'm going to be sitting at home and going nowhere, but I'll watch it all unfold on the night of the 23rd in a few days and see how that goes. But ciao for now, and hopefully see you on the street soon.